Okay, so I'm going to show you how to add watercolor to your finished Zentangle rock formations. Once I have all of my patterns down in my layers of rock, I'm going to be ready to add watercolor. Now we're going to be using a special kind of watercolor. It's liquid watercolor. It's very different than the watercolor that you might have used in the pans or the palettes. It's super concentrated. So what we do is we add water to our section first, then we can come in and drop some color because it is not diluted at all. So I'm just going to take some water and I'm going to only put it in the section that I want to paint. And you don't want to soak it, okay? Partly because your Sharpie could bleed if you use too much water. And I'm going to dip it, my paintbrush, in the liquid watercolor just a little bit, and I can start to add it, and you're going to see that it's going to bleed into that section. Now the really cool thing about that is that now I can come take another color, and I want to stay with colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, otherwise I'm going to make a yucky brown, right? So I've got blue, and maybe I'll add some purple. Okay. And I'm always going to rinse my brush before I switch to colors, otherwise you're going to contaminate the paint. And now I can get this to kind of bleed into that section. Okay, if you soak your paper too much, then you're going to get some bubbling. And we want to try to eliminate as much bubbling as possible. Okay, so I've been able to kind of blend those colors. Now, I'm going to start with every other section because if I get the next section wet right here, it's going to all bleed in together. And I don't want to do that yet. I want to keep it separate. So I'm going to get this section wet and just work in here. Okay, because I want to make sure that I'm not letting my layers bleed together. So I'm going to pick up some yellow with my brush, and I'll drop some yellow in. Okay, remember that section's wet, so that yellow is just going to bleed right in. And then I might pick up some pink, because we know that pink is the same as red on the wheel, and red and yellow make orange, so I know I can use that. And I'm going to drop in some pink now. And you can see it's really only staying. And if you want to blend them together, you can just take a little bit of water and just kind of let them bleed together. It's only staying in this section because that's the only section I got wet. So now I'm going to skip a section. Okay, I'm going to leave these two sections alone because they're next to, and I'm going to come right here and I'm going to work. Now, I dripped when I was working on my first section, so I may just go in with some blue, and that way, okay, with some turquoise, that way that's not a problem. Then I'm going to drop that in. See how nice that bleeds when you drop that in? And then I think I'm going to drop in some greens. I'm going to rinse my brush out, kind of get the extra water off it because I want that color to be nice and bright. And then I'll drop in some green with my brush. And I might drag it here. See how that's starting to bleed on its own? And then I know green and yellow are next to each other on the wheel, so I might take some more yellow and kind of drop that into my green. Now remember, this is wet, so it's going to kind of bleed on its own. But I'm just going to kind of drop it in. And maybe I'll come over here and fill in some of that white space. And just kind of blend that out a little bit. Okay, so that's that section. And I'm just gonna keep working down my sections until I have everything painted. So I'm gonna skip this section here, these, and I'm gonna move to this section here. And I'm gonna get this section wet. Once these dry, you'll be able to go back and do the sections that you skipped, but we're gonna wait until those are dry. So this is all wet. Again, I'm not soaking it because I don't want it to bubble that much. I don't want it to bubble at all, but it's going to, just because that's what happens. So I'm gonna take some orange, I'm gonna drop in some orange. Oh, and that orange was contaminated, you can tell, with a different color, so I can't really use that. I'm gonna dump that out and put some real orange in there. So I'll come in, that's kind of purpley, so I'll come in with some purple so I don't make brown. And I'll drop that purple right in there. You can see that purple's already spreading. And then I'm gonna drop some red in, because red and purple are next to each other on the color wheel. And I'll make a nice red violet now. Now remember, all that water is gonna carry your color and let it kind of bleed. We'll come over here a little bit, fill some of that in. And if you want to bleed it together a little bit more, just take a plain brush with just a little bit of water on it and go over, and it will kind of blend together. But you always kind of want to clean your brush before you do that, otherwise you're just going to put color on top of color. And we want it to bleed instead of sit on top. Okay. So I'm just going to keep doing that. I would skip this section. I could probably do this section, then I can come and do this section, and I'm going to work my way down. Now you can repeat color combinations. Let's say I want to do another blue-green layer. That's fine. Just make sure that you kind of have some variety. So if you want a color pattern, like blue-green, purple-red, whatever it is that you want, that's fine too, or you can be random about it. Completely up to you. You can work warm colors to cool colors. So you decide, you're the artist. But the most important thing to remember is that we get our section wet first with plain water, and then we drop the color in. We don't paint with the liquid watercolor directly onto our page. Okay? When these are finished, make sure that your name is on the back, and they're going to go on the drying rack. If class ends before you're done, we still need to put it on the drying rack, and you can finish it the next day.